Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Downing. This is my partner, Deanna, and Jody is over Zoom today. She's back at home, but you will be able to hear her over the loudspeaker, hopefully, when she's talking, but we'll make any adjustments if necessary. But to start the presentation, we've titled our project Support, Sustain, Sync, Maquoketa Farmers Market and Social Linkages. Let's get started. We first wanted to start with some acknowledgements. First, thanking IISC, our faculty advisors, our partners, Ted Stray, David Heyer, for helping us out with this project, as well as all of the interviewees that we've had throughout the duration of this project. We've spoken with many, many people around the county, and they've all been very kind and excited to donate their time to help us out with this project. But jumping into the project is best summed up with our project statement, which is to support the Maquoketa Farmers Market as a local food distributor and community foundation to allow them to better engage with and serve the public. Our four main goals that we've been kind of addressing throughout the semester have been communicated to us by our partners. The top priority being long-term survival, as well as new programs, grant funding, and some sort of regional collaboration, the benefits of it at least. So talking about the Maquoketa Farmers Market itself, we might be preaching to the choir here, but the Maquoketa Farmers Market was established in 2012 as a subsidiary of the Chamber of Commerce. In 2019, they filed for articles of incorporation with the state of Iowa and now seek 501c3 tax exempt status with the federal government. Currently, there's no hired staff with the Maquoketa Farmers Market. All operations are carried out by market manager Ted Strait, as well as the volunteer board members. They currently are at vendor capacity, and they often host music, dancing, as well as cooking instruction from the local master gardeners. They even have a low-income family voucher program in partnership with the food bank. And about 1,500 people have been accepted to the Facebook group online. So pretty relatively large following. Talking about some of the significance of the project. Jackson County and the city of Maquoketa have been fortunate for its active community members who have kickstarted organizations like this farmers market, master gardeners, and economic development organizations. They've all participated and contributed to many different projects, including a skate park, dog park, summer concert series, the Maquoketa Farmers Market itself. The Farmers Market Board feels that the market has not only become an important place to access locally produced foods and allow entrepreneurs connect with consumers, but also it's become a nice place for community gathering and something that people really look forward to. Farmers markets are important community and economic institutions and serve as catalysts for development in rural areas. These markets help bolster the local food economy, connect farmers and entrepreneurs directly with consumers, and build community ties that strengthen social linkages. Now talking a little bit about our methods and how we've kind of brought in all of the content and prioritized things. After talking with our partners at the very beginning and establishing some of their goals and priorities, we started our academic research, looking at academic articles, case studies, other types of information. This has continued throughout the duration of our project. We also did a strategic planning meeting with the board. We'll talk a little bit more about the details of that later. And then lastly, we did a lot of stakeholder and industry engagement via interviews. We talked with farmers market managers. We talked with nonprofit economic development organizations here in Jackson County. We spoke with every single member of the board, as well as a few government officials. All of that has led us to our recommendations, which we'll get to. Just kind of outlining what's going to be going from here, kind of getting into the content of our project. First, we're going to talk about those informational interviews, then the strategic planning meeting that we had with the board, some of the research that we've gotten into, and finally, we'll give you all the recommendations. But starting first with my interviews, I interviewed the local government officials and nonprofit organizations. It's a total of 7 interviews. However, just for the sake of time, I kind of refined it down to 3 main big points to talk about here today. First, I met with Jack Wiley, who's the chairman of the County Board of Supervisors here in Jackson County, and he expressed optimism that the market could provide for funding in the next upcoming legislative session. We also met with a director at the Northeast Iowa RC&D, and he offered a free in-depth financial analysis of revenues and expenses to try and find new sources of revenue, as well as to build capacity for a potential farmers market manager. See if it'll come back. Lastly, met with the Jackson County Economic Alliance and spoke with them, David Heyer in particular, about regional cooperation with Bellevue's farmers market. Talked about how that could potentially attract more funding from the county, but also that it could bring on more responsibility for the market. In the end, we kind of just emphasized that it might be a good thing to engage with going forward. Pass it off to Deanna here.
Thank you. A series of interviews were conducted with peer market managers in Iowa. The managers were asked to describe their most successful programs which promoted community engagement and increased market sales. This was a lot of fun. I appreciated the opportunity to speak with so many highly engaged market managers who were very clearly passionate about their work. The Marion Uptown Chamber Farmers Market features the POP Club. POP stands for the Power of Produce. Information is available through the Farmers Market Coalition about this initiative, which provides farmers markets with a full curriculum of educational programming developed by the Iowa State Extension Office. POP clubs engage kids in the local food system through conversations directly with farmers, educational games, and demonstrations. For instance, participants in the 2-Bite Club are rewarded for taking 2 bites of a fruit or vegetable with a $3 voucher that they can spend at the market. Scholastic Books makes bargain books available for $1 to local school teachers. At the Washington Farmers Market, through a partnership with the local teacher, the market purchased 100 books paid for through a sponsorship with a local business for advertising at the market. The books were then given away free to kids at the market. The initial goal in Washington was to give out 600 books in 6 weeks. The program was such a success, they ended up giving away 1,500 books in 15 weeks. The program was credited with doubling their weekly attendance and increasing their sales. Decorah and Grinnell both partner with local high school honors society students to work at the market during the summer to fulfill their community service needs. In particular, these markets staff their SNAP EBT booth with honor students. Their technical savvy improved the efficiency of the transactions at the booth. Most of the markets attributed school or youth activities to attracting families to the market, keeping them at the market longer, increasing community engagement and sales. Now Jody will speak about the project's strategic planning process.
Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. I just wanted to check before I went into it. So we held our strategic planning session with the board via Zoom on March 31st. Our strategic planning process was designed through concepts from current nonprofit strategic planning literature, and we used information that we gathered from interviewing board members. Oh, am I good?
You're okay. Yeah, you're good.
And we used information we gathered from interviewing board members on organizational strengths and weaknesses, and designed a process which would clarify the mission of the organization, use strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to define strategic issues, and finally define tactics which would address the processes needed to combat those strategic issues. So first, we started with a mission clarification. The board members discussed leading principles of the organization and drew from some buzzwords that we used during the icebreaker exercise from the introduction. Using a building block sentence structure exercise, the board was able to craft a concise mission statement that they now have the option to adopt. The created mission statement was, The Maquoketa Farmers Market's mission is to support area producers, educate consumers on the availability of local foods, and foster a sense of community. So next, we did a SWOT analysis, and here's the results of our SWOT analysis brainstorm. SWOT is an acronym for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and is a commonly used exercise during strategic planning. Strengths and weaknesses are identified as internal components of the organization, focused on operational capacity, divisions of labor, and the skills and vulnerabilities of staff and volunteers. Opportunities and threats are characterized as forces external to the organization, which may impact the mission. This includes dynamics which arise in the organization's community, demographic shifts, and the economic and political context of the service area. So next, we completed a strategic issue identification exercise. And here you can see our top 3 strategic issues that were identified from the board. After breaking into 2 separate groups to encourage more engagement, board members were asked to use a SWOT analysis to help identify strategic issues which were most pertinent to the organization. Strategic issues can be defined simply as the where, when, why, what, and who of an organization. So we created an exercise where we framed these issues with the sentence structure. The issue is blank, which could mean blank, which helped to identify outcomes of acting or not acting on a particular strategic issue. So next, we completed an exercise that we called What Should We Do? And essentially it's a list of tasks or tactics. And this is an edited list from that exercise. We use the strategic doing framework to inspire this exercise. And it serves as a nod to the doing or the action-oriented nature of the goal for strategic planning. Using the top 3 strategic issues, the board members brainstormed a list of tasks to address each of those issues. So we created a strategic plan document as an example of how to break down these recommendations. This is a sample plan that will be shared with the Maquoketa Farmers Market in the final report. The strategic plan can be used as a roadmap for organizational priorities, but can also be shared with potential funders and stakeholders. So next, we'll transition into our sections of research. So as we stated, we used interviews, strategic planning, and then 3 research sections to inform these recommendations. So the sections included nonprofit organizational effectiveness, programs and grants, and regional collaboration. And first, we'll start with nonprofit organizational effectiveness. So farmers markets vary in terms of structure, sophistication, budget, and resource allocation. They can be structured in several ways, including a partnership, sole proprietorship, for-profit corporation, or nonprofit corporation. Farmers markets without a 501c3 status can use what's called a fiscal agent. Nonprofits established with a fiscal agent must allow the fiscal agent to retain the right to decide at its own discretion how it will use contributions per the IRS designations. There are, however, several benefits to this structure, including the ability to share resources and delegate responsibilities. Nonprofit farmers markets and public organizations must define value through the populations they serve, areas of service provided, and sources of income. For nonprofit farmers markets, value is created through social good rather than increased revenue or returns to company owners. So more strategic triangle is a model for understanding how nonprofit and public managers can define success through these 3 key dimensions: public value that's created, suppliers of legitimacy and support, and the operational capacity for the organization. According to Moore, the public sector, which includes nonprofit entities, main goals should be to achieve the social mission of the organization most efficiently and effectively. So he argues that a key performance indicator for the public sector is to improve methods of fulfilling the mission of the organization. The development of institutionalized roles is a key component of successful farmers markets. The Iowa Farmers Market Development Manual, published by the Iowa Department of Ag, outlines the key duties of a market manager, which include event management, communications management, and operations management. Another key duty is the promotion and advertisement of the market. So depending on the capacity of the organization, some farmers markets managers' job description will include all of these roles, and some organizations will employ several members of a team to cover aspects of the role. The Washington State Market Manual points to the need for an organizational chart that clearly states the importance of roles in determining the hierarchy for organizational benefit. Farmers market nonprofit boards serve as a fundamental part of the organizational structure and serve several purposes. A resource dependency view suggests that boards are crucial resource streams, either politically through board members' connections to the community, or intellectually through specialized skills, which help bolster the skills of staff and can lead to improved performance. The Washington State Farmers Market Toolkit suggests diversifying the skills of board members, which can become especially important if the market decides to pursue grants or offer SNAP incentive programs due to the complexity in the management of these programs. So next, I'll pass it off to Deanna to cover our second research question.
The next research question was to identify programs or grant opportunities. Farmers market nutrition programs are funded by the USDA and administered by the Iowa Department of Agriculture. Social safety net programs, such as the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, alleviate demand constraints by providing the means to purchase needed food. Initiatives such as SNAP improve food security by boosting access, supply, and purchasing power. 100% of the peer market managers interviewed, which participate with EBT, indicated they felt the program was well worth the administrative time and effort, as it increased attendance and sales and ensured low-income residents can shop at the market. A few markets offered helpful tips for administration, which are included in our report. Grant opportunities are also available through the USDA Farmers Market Promotion Program each year. The average grant is $100,000 and there is a 25% match required. Wellmark Foundation offers grant opportunities for nonprofit organizations in Jackson County, which support projects that increase access to healthy foods. Nonprofits must have a 501c3 status. They can request up to $100,000, and there is a dollar for dollar equal match. The Healthiest State Initiative offers grant funding to cover the incentive and startup costs associated with the SNAP EBT and the Double Up Food Bucks program. In addition, they offer capacity building grants of $1,500 to farmers markets with a 501c3 status. There are many other grant opportunities that may be available through the state of Iowa, as well as public and private foundations, which fund projects related to food insecurity with a 501c3 status. Ryan will now discuss the next research question.
So my research covered the benefits of regional collaboration within Jackson County. And first, we'll discuss some of the benefits that we found. First, there's federal and state programs that incentivize or sometimes even require that you be collaborative with other organizations in the area, as well as local governments might find more of an incentive to provide funding to a network of organizations. So attracting more funding is first the benefit. I also found an academic article that discussed how farmers and farmers market managers frequently have an incentive to work on a marketing campaign with each other. And so another benefit that we see is potential work in some sort of collaborative marketing campaign. Also, there's an efficiency in distribution of resources when you engage in joint funding. Rather than having to spend twice, you can go in on it together. Obtaining information, often not the primary reason, but is always a good thing, whether if it's past experiences or things that have been done wrong, you can kind of collaborate and work past those things. And lastly, consistency across markets was in my interview at the Iowa Valley RC&D, they talked about how consistent rules, standards, practices across markets, allows for vendors and customers to have an expected experience, predictable experience, and make it easier for them to access and come back. Next, talk about the best practices in nonprofit collaboration. First of all, leadership is always one of those things in community organizing. Having somebody who's well-connected, who is driven, and is able to really drive the initiative from the beginning. Also flexibility. Whenever you're working with somebody else, they'll probably have different practices, standards, how they do things, and being flexible and conscious of that is important. Building and maintaining trust. I added this quote. I thought it might fit well with some of the master gardeners in the board. Always important. And lastly, reflection and gathering input. Whenever going in on some sort of collaboration, after a certain amount of time when the practice has been done, reflecting with leadership about what has been done well, what has not been done so well, and what could be done going forward, as well as gathering input from vendors, customers that have been a part of the collaboration as well. And lastly, I found this to be the most interesting personally. There's this article I found that took something called innovation theory and applied it to this collaboration, and basically break it down into these 4 steps in the diagrams on the right. So to begin with, you'll need strong, innovative leadership to drive the initiative. And on the bottom right figure, that's the 2.5% of the population that are called innovators. And that's really going to drive the initial collaboration. Bringing in more leaders, called the early adopters, is the next step. And then finally, as the collaboration starts going, the organization leadership needs to start decentralizing responsibilities, which is where you can see in the top right figure. Basically, that just means like giving decision-making or operations management off to other people in the organization. Eventually, as this continues to go on, the original leadership will see themselves more as a coordinator rather than a manager. And this is healthy for organizations. It allows for sustainable cyclical operations. It can help you when you run into a turnover of management because the responsibility has been decentralized throughout many people or sometimes even many organizations. This is much easier to talk about than to actually do. And so everything that I've seen is that you need to be patient and persistent. It won't be necessarily easy or quick, but the benefits are exponential. The further that you can extend your network, or the further that you can make this happen, the benefits will grow and grow and grow. And so it's worth it in the end. And I'll talk about our recommendations.
Okay, finally, recommendations. These can be divided into smaller steps and include some short-term remedies. First is to decentralize organizational structure. Strategies include creation of an organizational chart to clarify roles, tasks, and responsibilities. This should include a formal organizational structure, including committees, board members, and volunteers. Next is to begin training 1 or 2 people on the specific market management tasks and document procedures which detail these activities. The market manager's tasks may be dispersed to multiple people who may be volunteers or paid staff. The market may also consider reaching out to a local community college to create a summer internship program. The next strategy is to create a committee or task force with the primary objective of exploring options to improve organization viability. This could include the option to fundraise or obtain sponsorships needed to hire a farmer's market manager, collaborate with local organizations, as well as determine if the organization should obtain 501c3 status or operate under a fiscal agent. The Small Business Development Center is a free service that can help navigate this process and determine and establish the most optimal business structure for the farmers market. The second recommendation is to recruit new board members to the board. While the active and engaged board has been a strength for the organization, it will become important to continue to recruit new board members as responsibilities shift. This small and agile organization has the opportunity to expand the board now to avoid challenges later. Current board members should stay active during the recruiting and onboarding process to create continuity. Suggestions are to add one new member who has a relationship with a current or potential strategic partnership, such as the Chamber of Commerce, Iowa State Extension Office, an Iowa RCND, Workforce Development Organization, or a local community college. Other board members could have grant writing skills, expertise in fundraising, finance, or familiarity with SNAP programs. You may find these individuals through direct outreach to the Area Agency on Aging, chamber networking events, or local community college. The next recommendation is to increase fiscal capacity and expand programming. Currently, the largest obstacle to increasing market capacity or hiring a market manager is the lack of funding. A formal review of market finances may potentially identify cost-saving measures. Consultations with local nonprofit financial planners may provide the frameworks required to pursue grants, sponsorships, or other fundraising methods. This may be accomplished by engagement with the Northeast RCND, which offers free formal financial analysis and recommendations. This could include the development of a strategic plan to build organizational capacity, allowing the means to hire a market manager. If this is not feasible, then Northeast RCND can also provide education and guidance in fundraising techniques. Another potential strategy is to apply for funding through Jackson County. Lastly, this could also be accomplished by expanding SNAP participation to include SNAP, EBT, and Double Up Bucks through the Healthiest State Initiative. Currently, 22% of Maquoketa households receive SNAP benefits. If the market expands acceptance of SNAP market-wide, they will increase their potential customer base by 620 households within Maquoketa. The next strategy is to develop programming intended to attract a younger, more diverse crowd. This can be accomplished through programming partnerships with local K-12 schools or youth organizations. Several examples are provided in section 4 of the report. And the last recommendation is to engage in collaboration. Collaborating with other organizations can increase market efficiency and ensure the sustainability of the market long-term. Collaboration has become a safety net for rural nonprofits and small organizations. Bellevue and other markets face similar challenges with management turnover, lack of resources, and diversity. Working together to address commonly held challenges and expand access to local foods and build the communities that attract new residents. Collaboration with the Bellevue Market should start small. Early collaboration could include sharing information and experiences, replicating rules and standards and regulations. Further collaboration on projects like a marketing campaign would be a great next step and lead to further resource sharing and task sharing. Finally, as the Maquoketa Farmers Market establishes these partnerships and collaborations to build capacity, leadership should begin transitioning task responsibility and decision-making ability to other involved members and organizations. Spreading responsibility throughout this new expanded network will decentralize the structure of the organization, allowing greater flexibility, greater capacity, and long-term sustainability. That brings us to our conclusion. We thank you for your interest and attention today, and we would welcome your questions.